Excellent. This is the keynote here for Netroots Nation 2016. So please give yourselves a hand for coming out tonight. We're very happy to have you here. And so what I want you guys to know is that this is going to be a bit different of a keynote than you might have been used to in the past. This keynote is actually an episode of my show, Twit Prime, which is a part of the This Week in Blackness suite of shows, which actually you should please keep an eye out for. It'll be debuting on Free Speech on August 8th, so be prepared for that. Also restart the TriCaster. Sorry, I'm directing at the same time. So, much like my show, of course, everything went to shit right before we started the show. Because that's what happens. You can test shit all you want, and the day that you connect it and you come into the room and a bunch of people come in, nothing works all of a sudden. And we've gotten used to that. But this is still going to be a ridiculous show, I assure you. So first off, I'd like to introduce my co-hosts on this show. We like to call them Team Blackness. First up, a long-time member of Team Blackness. She is going to be the host of the upcoming This Week in Black Women, which we will be producing very, very soon. She is a political strategist, president of the Brooklyn NAACP. We have L. Joy Williams. How are you doing, L. Joy? Did you just ask me? I said, how are you doing? There's a crowd of people. There's a studio audience for Twin Front. How are you atting me?
Well, I didn't say ass. Nah.
So you're correcting me on your apathy?
Yes.
See, this is
I could also give you anger, because that's also there. Should I start there?
You can give me whatever you want.
You
are allowed. Anger is allowed.
Anger is allowed.
That's something that sometimes white folks don't know. You'll learn today. Next up, we have a very new member of the Twin Nation family. She is the radical executive officer of The Body Is Not an Apology. She speaks all over the country. Apparently, she was just at the White House. She will come to where you are for money if you pay her. You should do that. We have critically acclaimed, internationally known poet, Sonia Renee Taylor. Madam. I just realized I don't have my laptop. I feel naked.
You didn't come with anything.
Listen, I came with a lot of shit. It's called baggage.
You don't have any of it up here.
Huh?
Look, we're happy he didn't bring any of his baggage up here. We're good.
We don't need any.
Don't worry, the baggage is coming.
Oh no, we have the tendency to give baggage to black women, so we're good, like not having.
Wow.
I went there.
It just started. It just started. Can we at least just sit down for a second and have something present?
No, going all the way in.
Okay. Well, this is gonna be a show. Just be prepared for that. So apparently my little sister that was just working just now all broke.
They don't know how we do.
And so, listen, we have a very, very, very good show for you tonight. And I'll just warn you now, if you weren't prepared, this will be the blackest Netroots opening you've ever fucking seen in your life.
Blackity black.
Y'all happy about that?
Who's a little afraid? I just want you to give a church
Be honest.
You're just a little afraid.
I see one hand
tell
in the back in the
nobody.
middle. We'll send some ushers back there to help you.
First of all, we don't have ushers.
There's a nurse.
Is that what the two ladies up here, are they
No,
ushers?
they are protectors of the cords.
The protectors of the cords. So we have protectors of the cords, but not ushers to help the people?
Yes.
I feel like that was some planning that was not, I don't know,
Some oversight on the.
You were.
I was not on that team.
Say,
So we needed ushers. People needed fans, there should some water and something.
This is not church. It is a talk.
Anytime black people are gathered, it's church, pumpkin.
Lord. Don't clap. Then the next thing you know, within 5
Now we're not gonna perform for people though. That's not.
So basically, I just want to be clear here. Nothing I do is going to be right for the next hour.
That's pretty accurate.
Excellent. As long as we have that, we established. You know, this feels exactly like the show.
Regular show.
It's just a regular show here. We do this Monday through Thursday, and we have a docket full of shenanigans, tomfoolery, and what have you. But what's first up here, Miss Williams?
Well, Sonia has some stories for us to discuss this week. There's lots of things happening all over the world. Breaking news stories happening. I know people just got here today. They may have not had a chance to use their, Flipboard or RSS feed to see what's going on. But let us remind you.
Who uses Flipboards?
You know what? I like my little Flipboard. I didn't like it. At first I felt like bloatware on my phone, but now it actually gives me things that are useful.
I use Flipboard.
Okay, you can use Flipboard.
I just want you to stop judging people's particular technological
judging anything.
Are you tech shaming me?
I'm not.
Are you tech shaming?
Live your life. I'm sure that you also have abacus at home. Do what you have to do.
And carrier pigeons. Thank you.
Send a raven. What do we have?
So, this week in Black News, as we know, many of us are still mourning the senseless deaths of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile from last week. I think it's important, one, that we just acknowledge that pain in this space collectively, right?
Indeed.
So often these murders happen and we just go on about our business, right? And some of us live in the trauma of it every single day, and then some of us go on about our business, talk about our rotisserie turkey we got from Whole Foods and carry on.
I feel as if, I agree with you. The idea of definitely, especially in a space like Netroots, which has for years been been predominantly white. That's just in case you weren't, we know.
We know this.
I don't know if you guys thought it was a secret, and you're like, no, we don't really. It's not. We knew it was a lot of white folks here. We were prepared, and we know that.
Because we used to count. We used to count how many of us were here in the beginning. At least I did.
And the fact that counting is possible says all we need to know about that.
But at the same time, in this space, yes, there needs to be open, but I feel as if we have to make sure that we do not constantly force, I guess, black pain on black people in general. Because the fact is, we got a lot of shit going on. It just is. The fact is, half the time, if I see a red or blue light, I'm having an anxiety attack. I don't need to sometimes sit in it as much because I can't. I don't have the capability. I'm not flat out. I'm just not strong enough to sit through all of that all the time.
But I don't know if we're never not sitting through it, right? I think it's like, it reminds me of my grandmama who used to always have the radio on. She wasn't listening, but it was always playing, which means that the message was always present even in her subconscious. And I think that is absolutely the reality of black pain in America. Whether you are actively watching the video of another black person being murdered, or you are cooking your dinner, the trauma that is blackness in American society is always on buzz.
And it's something that we always experience, right? Sonia mentioned that people may see this on TV, they see the videos, they see the protests, they see the conversation, and the majority goes on with their life. And yet in our spaces still, in church, in our organizations, in our homes, to our kids, we're still talking about that trauma. And Pokemon Go.
I'm stressed.
Yeah, can we talk about Pokemon though?
No, we cannot talk about Pokemon Go.
It's related to black pain, I swear to God.
Oh my God.
So first and foremost, Pokemon, it is coincidental that this game that is about absolute reality escapism shows up 5 days after more black deaths than an entire country over.
Games take years to develop.
Years to develop, and when you hit send, let's send it to the market, are very strategic. Those are not.
I feel like your whole time.
And even if, whatever.
Did y'all know when Pokemon Go came out? It came out to suppress us.
Suppress black movements, it did.
Do you understand? Ask yourself a question.
Where am I right now? What is
Black
happening?
soap and shea butter.
That's
Boom.
what she,
No,
I'm just
what
saying,
I'm
that's what Sony's
saying
doing
is
right now.
the appeal of whether it was released, I mean, whatever, they released it when they released it. But the reason why it's, positioned right now to surpass the financials of every startup ever within 5 days.
It was made by Nintendo.
Right. Exactly.
But there
Right.
is-
That's about the escapism that we as a society are interested in.
Because there's always a distraction. There's always a distraction, and whether it is contrived, whether it is someone designed over it or someone talked about, or whether or not collectively people as a society or people individually seek out things to escape what they are experiencing. Those of us who are organizers and do some of the social justice work every day, we often find ourselves sometimes wanting to argue against the people we're trying to help and serve. Right? So we'll say, why aren't you paying attention to this? Why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you calling your legislators? Why aren't you doing this? And for some people, the space to sit in that trauma of economic suppression, the space to sit in that trauma of abuse from police is too much. And so we have to be careful not to batter them in their escapism, that they need to escape from the daily trauma that they're experiencing as well. But
I don't want us to escape in ways that are going to get us killed. I done already heard about people knocking on people's doors like there's a Pokemon thing in your backyard. Do you
Don't
mind?
come to my
We done
house.
already killed Black people for knocking on doors for real legitimate help. So don't go on nobody knocking looking for no Pokemon.
Are you saying don't Pokemon while black?
Don't Pokemon. We might not.
I just want to know what it's called.
They have killed us for lesser things. That's all I'm saying.
I need to move this conversation
Just saying.
off of Pokemon.
I said one word. I didn't know we were going to. Let us pray.
Thank you. Let's move this conversation on, because we do have guests. We do have conversations to have to further this conversation that we're having on stage. And I want to make sure that everybody gets to hear from all of them, that we have the time to hear all of their voices and experiences. And one of the things that we saw over the last couple of weeks, as there have been more killings at the hands of the state, that's the way that I describe them, is there's also display of Black pain and Black death. And we become entertainment. While some people need the display in order to be moved to action, for a number of people, it is constant trauma and trying to keep your children and even yourself from seeing that. But we're in a city, in a space right now, which collectively has also experienced trauma and has also collectively resisted for a long time. It's not a new resistance. The resistance that is happening now is just, y'all are just tuning in. Some people are just tuning in. But it has been resistance for a long time, resisting against the state, resisting against the criminal justice system, resisting in affirming the lives of Black people in this country. And so let's start at the beginning. Let's start where we are. We're in St. Louis. And so joining us on stage right now is someone who can give us that context, give us that history. Jamala Rogers, who is one of the co-founders of Organizing for Black Struggle. The Organization for Black Struggle is a St. Louis-based organization. She's also the author of the book, Ferguson is America, Roots of Rebellion. She's challenged the criminal industrial complex for decades, focusing on police violence, prison reform, wrongful convictions, and the death penalty. And so, Jamala, thank you so much for joining us on stage to have this conversation. And we'll get your mic on and just flip it on. And I wanted to begin by starting with some history to color this. Because many people see the uprisings on TV, they see another killing of another Black person, and they believe that the uprising or the protest starts from that just one event. And so, considering that you have been here for some time, organizing for some time, and also basically written the book on it, I wanted to start with you and sort of give us some history and context of the history of systematic oppression here in St. Louis.
So thank you for having me. And I do want to, I think that's an excellent question, because one of the things that happened even with Ferguson was why Ferguson? And why this particular killing? Because there had been several before Mike Brown, and it was difficult for us to even get some traction around it. And one of them was Kerry Brown Jr., who was shot 25 times by the police. So the phenomenon of police murders is nothing new in St. Louis and St. Louis region. But I think one of the things I point out in the book is that you have an accumulation of oppression and injustices that keep getting heaped on Black people day after day after day. And so I try to pull out in the book what a day would look like for a Black person in St. Louis. And it's quite miserable. I mean, there's like all these micro aggressions by racism, but then it's the systematic oppression. So we now know what happened in Ferguson with the kind of court system that they have, where every time there was a stop, they were almost mandated to get at least 4 or 5 citations, because what they were trying to do is to build revenue for the city. So
that's 4 or 5 citations per stop.
Right.
So basically they stop you and then you leave with 4 tickets.
You leave with 4 tickets because the racial profiling, it used to be that you just got stopped. But for a lot of the municipalities in North County, it was actually to generate revenue for the city. So people were horrified to find out, for example, that in Ferguson, there were actually more bench warrants out than there were people that lived there.
Wow. People have 3 and 4 bench warrants for all the multiple tickets.
All the multiple tickets. And so you could have a ticket, not show up in court, now there's a warrant out for you, now you're going to get picked up, post bond in a couple of municipalities, possibly lose your job, and now the cycle starts all over again. So those are the kind of things that at a certain point you just say enough is enough. And all of the logs and the incendiary stuff that has been put there, the match is dropped, and the match that was dropped was watching a young Black unarmed man bleed out in a hot summer day on the streets of Ferguson. Well, I think one of the big things is housing and where people live. And I think across this country, when I've traveled with the book, people talk about gentrification. So when white middle class people want to come back to the city, historically Black neighborhoods are displaced, bulldozed. Those folks are pushed out into outlying areas. And so just coming even from Pittsburgh this past weekend, I was talking to a couple of the brothers that are actually doing gentrification work there, and they were saying in the last 20 years, 20,000 Black folks have been moved out. Some of the historical Hill districts, those folks have been moved out.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I
So
go
you know
back,
what I'm talking about.
all of my family now lives in the suburbs.
There you go.
We grew up in the city.
Exactly.
Everybody's in the suburbs.
So that is being replicated all across the country, even in DC, which historically has been called Chocolate City.
I know more.
White people are moving in, and I was talking to people there who were saying our demand for statehood, we don't know if we're supposed to still be saying it, because now it's white people
It'll happen
who are calling for statehood.
It will happen.
And
Five years.
should that be our demand? And I'm like, hell yes, but it also be inclusive of the folks who were there before they got pushed
No,
out.
they won't be there by the time it gets there.
And that's the reality of it. And so, not having a place to live, being underemployed, unemployed, low-wage jobs, being treated like shit on the job, all of these things are happening every day to working-class Black people. And then you have the occupation of our communities by the police department, harassing daily occupation. And then, every once in a while there's these murders. But the typical day of a Black person is one of repression and trying to fight that oppression, both on an individual basis, and if they're part of an organization, they're trying to organize against that.
Rika is joining us on stage. Thank you, Rika. Also with us is Reverend Sekou. Is a pastor, author,
Come on out here.
theologian, and organizer. He's also a fellow at the Martin Luther King Institute at Stanford. Elle Hearns, a visionary strategist and organizer who supports coordinating and developing the Black Lives Matter Network. And also Tef Poe is there on the end, an artist organizer. I would just say, instead of saying organizer, I'm going to say a lover of Black people and seeking freedom for Black people. Can I say that? Is that all right? Okay. Well, thank all of you, Rika, Reverend Sekou, El Hearns, and Tefco for joining us. Now, we just set we had Jamala Rogers on to set the stage, right, to talk about that the reason why we're doing this work and we're pushing against the system is that it is a system. It is designed to push back on people. And I want each of you to go down and talk about the work you're individually doing, and we're going to have a conversation of organizing around the country in this space. So Reverend Sekou, let's start with you closer here to my table and talk about the work that you're doing now.
Well, first I wanted to say thank you for having all of us here, and welcome to our home, to a place that many of you all have seen on television but have yet to experience. Secondly, my work primarily now is as an artist. I'm in a band, Reverend Sekou and the Holy Ghost. We have a show tonight, yada yada. But I'm more interested in kind of discerning this age for you, right? That we actually, Ferguson is just not an abstraction, but we actually live in the age of Ferguson. And that the age of Ferguson is characterized by three fundamental features. The occupation of public space. So West Florissant was our Tiger Square.
You're gonna have to lean back because when you was all up in it, like, I mean, we was about that life.
But you can't see me.
We couldn't understand or
So,
hear.
I gotta say it right here.
Right there.
Okay, I won't move.
Hold it.
So the occupation of public space, the rejection of traditional leadership, and the calling into question previous systems previous generations that previous generations sought to become a part of. So it's a very different political moment. This is why that you have to understand Bernie Sanders in the context that there is no Bernie Sanders without these young people taking the streets. That they create the context for the possibility of that candidacy. And so so the age of Ferguson demands that we ask a different set of questions. So it's not simply about how do we alter police behavior, but what is the very nature of policing? That's a different kind of question. Why do they exist? What is their role in the context of Black communities, particularly given the fact that their primary role has been about protecting elites and protecting global capital in the context of resources and its obsession with looting and riots. That's the nature of policing in America. And so given that we have these different, the age of Ferguson demands that we ask a different set of questions, the other question that comes before us, given the fact that we are now in what will perhaps be the age of Trump. Even if he does not win, he's unleashed an undercurrent, a possibility of foregrounding of something that is deeply ingrained in American culture as relates to xenophobia, homophobia, sexism, and misogyny. He's not an abrasion to America. Donald Trump is many of y'all's cousin. And so what does that mean? What are our capacity of organizing in such a way that we can hold that at bay? And much of it is not going to happen in the context of electoral politics. It's going to happen with young people consistently in the street. I'm not saying don't vote. I'm saying vote and. Voting is like, what do you call it? Harm reduction.
It's harm reduction. Yes.
And so anyway, that's the age of Ferguson. I won't talk no more. Thank you.
You're gonna talk some more. I'm gonna make sure that Rika.
I'm a part of Hands Up United. Hands Up United was deeply rooted from Ferguson's uprising. We have a books and reference program that we do every last Saturday of the month. We have 2 locations on the north side and the south side where we give out free literature and feed the kids. And we have a pantry. I was like, wait. We have a food pantry where we give out free food to the community every month. We have a tech program that our sister Tara Thompson, she teaches the children. It's a 6-week workshop for kids of color, well, youth of color, to come in, learn how to code. It's so much that we have. We have Freedom Flicks, where we do the movies in the park, where we do political things, surroundings around that. And then, I mean, we still in the streets. We still getting killed every day, so we just out there.
Next up is Elle.
Hey, thank you. Great to be back here at Netroots. Great to see all of your faces. I want to definitely say thank you to the St. Louis community, the organizers, activists, folks who have really cultivated this space for us to be in. I want to just say thank you. It's because of all of you and all of the work that you did here in this community, in surrounding areas that has inspired us all. So start there, that's important. I have the privilege of coordinating and supporting the development of a movement and supporting that to be reflective of Black people that I come from, Black people that I live with, and Black people that I love. And that consists of all of us. And so my work is really around mobilizing, energizing, and making sure that our practice is reflective of our analysis. And that essentially is the work that I've been doing for the Black Lives Matter network and more broadly across the Black Lives Matter movement, the movement for Black lives and Black liberation in this country and abroad. And that really has consisted of reimagining the ways that intersectionality impacts us all and the ways that we understand oppression. And the ways that we actively participate in that. And it's been really, really amazing to see the shifts that have taken place. We're here at Netroots, and this is the opening plenary. So I'd be remiss without acknowledging the Black women, femme folks, brown women, femme folks who participated in an action last year at this very conference that shifted the political conversation in America. And that essentially is the work that I do and will continue to do.
Thank you, Tep.
How you doing? I'm a member and director of Hands Up United, also a hip hop artist. Rika explained most of the programs that we do. Like she said, we have a Books and a Breakfast program where we try to be first responders, first interactors with a lot of people in the community. It's not just for children, it's for adults as well. We have a technology program where, to expand on some of the things she said, we basically try to, with that program, introduce people to the ideologies of Black entrepreneurship. What does it look like to cultivate your own business? What does it look like to support Black businesses with your own skills versus learning these skills and running off to Silicon Valley and not using them to benefit Black liberation to any capacity. We also have a food pantry in the heart of the ghetto too, because so a lot of people come here and be like, yo, let's go to Ferguson. And most of the trauma that's going down in this city isn't Ferguson related, it's St. Louis City related. And so that's where we try to plant ourselves, in North St. Louis, where a lot of people would be scared to go, essentially. Where you know, while we're doing freedom flicks in the park, it's a reality that a shootout could break out. It's a reality that there is a gang war in the neighborhood. But we try to plant ourselves in that neighborhood to show people that, you know, well, this is what it looks like if we decide to try to organize, if we decide to try to think differently, if we try to implement alternative systems and things that just look differently than what people are typically looking for when they think that Black people need to be politicized. And our organization stands on that type of stuff is, Black people are already living in Donald Trump's America. We've been living in Donald Trump's America. The rest of y'all are scared to death that Donald Trump's America is gonna be your reality, but it's the reality that I grew up in. So we're in the midst of combating several different things. You know, sometimes people get caught up in the narrative race. For us, the narrative is what it is. Black people have never been free, and we just try to do what we gotta do to spark brains in future generations of people to contribute to this resistance.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you all so much for sort of giving us an overview of what it is you do. Many of you spoke to what I think is an important point, right? So last year around this time, I imagine some of the folks who are in this audience right now were upset with some of y'all. Upset because people very specifically came here and did an action, right? An action asking Bernie Sanders to present a platform related to the death of Black people, right? And there was a lot of, they weren't nice, you were rude, like, you know, the normal tropes that people give Black folks when we are acting in resistance to the oppression that we're on season 770 billion of, right? And so my question to you all in this space where many of you are returning, what does the progressive movement need to know about Black resistance so that they can be in solidarity with it, so that they can be on the right side of history rather than the wrong side of history once we get to liberation? Because I'm claiming that we will get to liberation with or without them, but if they want to be on the train with us, what is it that they need to be doing?
I think just to clarify, specifically to the action from last year, it wasn't only just because we wanted Bernie to present a platform, it was because the simplest acknowledgement of life lost was not done by Bernie or the folks who were supporting Bernie. And that was something that for Black organizers, for Black people in the space, we were feeling, and we were concerned that it was not a concern of these people who applaud themselves for being with us. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
And to the point around progressives, I think we've been having this conversation for a really long time around what you can do to be on the right side of history. And it's actually a conversation that I'm sick of because it's the same results and the reality is that we are still being murdered. Last year was Sandra Bland, and then a stream more of Black women who were found murdered in jails or whatever the case may have been. This year it's Philando, Alton, Delron, and the list, and even here, there's a list that continues. So the question can no longer be what can progressives do, what are you doing? And I think that's the place to start.
Motion in there. You have something to add to that conversation?
To piggyback off what she said, we had a Remember Her vigil last night to remember Sandra Bland for her 1-year anniversary here in St. Louis. A couple of you guys came out. I appreciate you guys for coming out. The sad reality is 2 women lost their lives overnight in St. Louis. So for progressives to be here and we're asking like, what can they do to help? Exactly what she said. What are you doing to help?
Okay. All right. Well, joining us on stage are 2 wonderful grassroots organizers in Ferguson, Brittany and Alexis. We have a conversation with and the babies. The babies right here. Can we get a baby mic too? I'm all for young people speaking. I don't want to stifle the voices of young people. Brittany and Alexis are grassroots organizers in Ferguson, Missouri, working on the ground since the uprisings in response to the murder of Mike Brown. And since then, they have been actively organizing, protesting, and working with community to ensure that that Black lives and that our voices are heard and uplifted, and our lives are preserved. So Sonia, I got these 2. How's Black? Just women on the stage.
It's just powerful. I love it. I need you to read your t-shirt out loud. That's what I need for.
My t-shirt says, I met God, she's Black.
Yeah, yes she is. Yes she is. Yes she is.
So, I wanted to bring the both of you on stage as we're cycling and having guests to talk about not only the work that we're doing to highlight the organizing we're doing for the both of you in your hometown, right? And talk about what you're doing now in contributing to the movement.
Well, actually, our last action, like our last time organizing, was on August 10th, 2015. And the reason for that is because on that day, we ended up shutting down Interstate I-70, both directions, right in between St. Louis County and St. Charles County. St. Charles County is it's like a county in St. Louis across the Missouri River, where a lot of white flight occurred. People left St. Louis County and left St. Louis City and went out to St. Charles and built their own communities. They won't allow public transportation. It is the pathway of white flight and abandonment. At that time, we shut down traffic because, you know, freeways were built to divide communities of color, and our communities are the ones that suffered the most. So since they were able to bypass the tragedies that we have to experience on an everyday basis, we thought we would take it to their doorstep. After that particular action, I was arrested and charged with a Class D felony of property damage and 2 misdemeanors of trespassing and disturbing the peace. Alexis was also charged with a misdemeanor of assault, disturbing the peace, and trespassing. And I'm actually out on $10,000 bond right now. So I'm unable to organize because the state has me hemmed up, you know? And it's not by coincidence, because this is what they do to organizers. You know, they put you in a position to where you have to choose, you know, life and family, or, you know, for freedom, right? The little bit of freedom that we have to choose that over continuing to fight against this wicked ass system. So we've kind of been at a standstill right now. Bob McCullough's office, the same office that failed to prosecute Darren Wilson, is actually handling our case. So our hands are pretty tied right now, but prior to August 9th, we definitely used to just shut shit down in the city of St. Louis to let people know that they will not celebrate